Hello, my name is Alex Isles and welcome to Segedunum Roman Fort in North Tyneside here in the northeast of England. And in a previous episode at Arbea Roman Fort, we looked at what the occupants of an infantry barrack would have had. So a contubernia, 8 infantry soldiers living together in one barrack room with the front room for their equipment and for their lives to basically live in and to cook in and to have their day-to-day lives. Here at Segedunum they have a reconstruction of what a cavalry barrack block would have been like. So right here you can actually see the layout of the cavalry room. As you've got this cavalry room, it's actually a really comfortable space compared to the infantrymen. Infantrymen had to have 8 men, as I've just said, in one room. Cavalrymen, on the other hand, would have 3 men sharing one room. So you can see already that the cavalryman has got far more space than his infantry equivalent. He right here has to share far less space. He's obviously got to keep his own personal equipment, so we can see in the corner of the room we've got 3 lancia, long spears. We have the scutum, which is their shields they would use. The spatha, which is the cutting sword used by cavalry in the 1st and 2nd centuries, but then another version of the spatha was then adopted by infantrymen in the late Roman period. And you've also got a horn saddle right here. I can go into this in more depth in another episode if people are interested. The Roman cavalry saddle was designed for the Roman soldier to grip onto the horse with his legs because the Romans hadn't invented stirrups yet. Those came across from barbarian people slightly later. So because of this, you would have to have quite a lot of strength to be a cavalryman, and that's an example of a Roman horned saddle right there. So all of their equipment has to be in the same room as them. They're living in here. You can see they've got a mill, a quern there, so they can grind flour and to make their own bread, because they would have received their own bread ration as well. But this is still quite a nice place to live. In comparison to an infantry soldier, anyone marrying a cavalryman would have a much more comfortable lifestyle. Alongside that as well, they think the cavalry barracks may have had an upstairs area where maybe a slave would have lived. So there would have been a slave also to care for the needs of the soldiers, maybe to prepare the food for them and to make their lives more comfortable. The front room, or the back room as it may have been, we're not entirely sure which way round they were, but the room, one of the other rooms, would have been the location where the horses were kept, and I'll do a short additional clip in a second just to show you that. So right here I'm stood in the other room of the Roman cavalryman's barrack, and this would be the location where the horses would be. So there would be 3 horses for 3 cavalrymen. Now they've had a variety of different sizes discovered when they've looked at horses across the Roman Empire, and it's probable that the more high-ranking you were, the larger the horse was. But this is a good example of a horse that we generally find here on Hadrian's Wall, and I'll just stand next to the horse. This is actually a model, just to reassure you. It's not a very well behaved horse that's managing to stand stone still while I'm here, but this is a model of an example. And today this is roughly what we would call the size of a pony. But in northern Britain, this would be perfect. This is the kind of horse we think the native Britons would ride, and the Roman soldiers would also ride as well, because they were perfect for dealing with the hills and the terrain of the north of Britain. And alongside that were quite hardy animals with great amount of stamina that could keep going for mile after mile after mile and enable the Roman cavalrymen to actually have an advantage as they were pursuing the Britons or doing their patrols. That said, again, we also have examples of other breeds of horses as well, some of them which would have been faster and slightly bigger, and then much larger horses as well that are much more likely used for work or industry. But when you have this room here, you would have had one room with the cavalrymen inside, and then you would have this room here with 3 horses in. This room, the horses would probably be put out to paddock at various times of the day in fields nearby to the fort so that they could eat, get exercise, things like that. But then were brought back in on an evening, back to their barrack block. When they're brought back to their barrack block, that meant the soldiers could quickly mobilize, get on their horses, and get out again to do their patrols or any fighting that was required by the unit at that time. So that gives you an idea of how the Roman soldiers lived, with the cavalrymen in one room, and right here next to them would be their horses as well. But the cavalry soldier up here on Hadrian's Wall would have had a very comfortable lifestyle compared to his infantryman, and he was also paid more as well. the infantryman was paid anywhere between 200 to 300 denarii a year, whereas the cavalryman was probably paid around about 300 to 320 denarii a year. Obviously there was inflation in the later Roman period where soldiers' wages increased dramatically, and they were able to have much more pay, and they were much more comfortable, and also were paid in kind at the same time. So they were given equipment alongside that to make up for the fact that their coins were worth less than they had been in earlier periods. But with that, the Roman cavalryman was able to spend on a lot more personal items, things to actually make him stand out from the crowd. And we actually see that the Roman cavalryman would have gilded a lot of his equipment. There were a lot of beautiful bridles, a lot of beautiful horse fittings, and the Roman cavalryman's kit himself was very much a fancy. They would have engravings on their helmets, they would have specifically decorated shields, all of those sort of things that would make them stand out from the infantryman counterpart. So you can see there that the Roman soldier, depending on his rank and his status within the Roman fort, would be able to show off their wealth a great deal more just because of the fact that they had a different responsibility within the unit, were paid more, and had a more comfortable lifestyle. And especially when you compare it to the infantryman's block, you can really see the difference. Then have a think again about the Roman centurion's personal accommodation as well, and in the next episode we'll have a look at the Roman centurion and their lifestyle and how their apartments were substantially better than the infantryman and also the cavalryman's lifestyles here on Hadrian's Wall and throughout the rest of the empire. I really hope you've enjoyed this video today. You've learned something about the layout of a cavalryman's room and being able to see what it would be like for a soldier up here on the frontier of the Roman Empire, and also have a similar experience across the rest of the empire as well. If you have enjoyed the video and you're not already, please do subscribe, share the videos with your friends, and if you would like to be involved in basically helping to decide on some of the content that I'll film in the future, please do subscribe to my Patreon. It helps no end. Alongside that, I really hope you're safe and well, and look forward to showing you more of the history of the northeast of England in another video shortly.